think you've met everyone here, Lorna.
Yes, we talked on the telephone. Oh, thank you so
but
much.
I don't know if you've met our Lieutenant Masters, Warner Purcell.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
How was your crossing?
Well, I came over 5 years ago, but it was lovely.
Oh, now, my darling, do you want some milk or something, Louis?
I'll give you a saucer.
Oh, no, you don't have to bother with that because I breastfeed her. Just kidding, everybody.
Good evening. Woody Allen's Bullets Over Broadway has recently won Diane Wiest the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress and also picked up 6 other nominations, including 2 for Allen himself as director and writer. It's a beautifully light and witty period piece set in the 1920s, which mixes the opening of a Broadway play with gangsters and murder. John Cusack plays a pretentious young playwright whose self-consciously arty drama is staged only because a bootlegger agrees to back it so long as his dumb girlfriend Jennifer Tilly is given a role. Wiest is a theatrical grande dame who seduces Cusack, and Chaz Palminteri is outstanding as Tilly's minder, who quietly rewrites the dismal play. The cast also includes Jim Broadbent and Tracy Ullman, but not, alas, Woody Allen. Good as Cusack is, his is a part that cries out for the kind of angst and neurosis that only Allen himself can really provide. However, Allen came into the studio a few weeks ago, and we talked about Bullets Over Broadway and the aftermath of his legal unpleasantness with Mia Farrow last year. As I'm sure you remember, their bitter court case over the custody of their son Satchel and their adopted daughter Dylan involved accusations of child molestation against Allen. He denied them heatedly, but such mud tends to stick. Well, we discussed all that, but first I asked him why he didn't star in the film himself.
Woody, the first question I have to ask you is that, good as John Cusack is, as David in Bullets Over Broadway, why didn't you play the role?
I'm too old, and there's no way that I could play that role. I'm 30 years too old to play that. I just couldn't do it. It's about a young, idealistic writer who falls in love with an older woman, and there's no chance in the world I could do it.
But you could have fixed all that with a few lines of dialogue here and there. You could have established an older writer falling in love with a woman of his own age.
But I mean, but falling in love with a woman of his own age is not as interesting, and you know, I couldn't be that idealistic if I was my age. I would probably be embittered or something if I hadn't succeeded as a playwright by that time. It opened up many cans of worms that I didn't want to deal with. If I had been years younger, I definitely would have played that part.
Where did the idea come from? It's a lovely idea. You've got the backstage theatre story, plus the Roaring Twenties, basically, haven't you? With all these violent bootleggers and gang warfare going on. I mean, how did all this come about?
I had the idea that it would be funny for a playwright to want to get his play on and not be able to afford it financially, and then have a gangster come along and say, I'll back your play, but you've got to put my girlfriend in the play and give her a significant role. I thought that would, is potentially a funny idea. You know, it doesn't sound so brilliant when I say it now. It's funny, but at the time it sounded like it had some potential. And then when I started to think about it a little bit and think of some of the other twists to it, it was an opportunity to do a film about aesthetics and about the problem of the artist and about compromise and about the difference between the artist and the man and the question of whether the artist is born or could be learned, and the problem of the person who emulates the artist in every conceivable way but can never emulate the core, the inexplicable core that makes that person an artist.
I'm used to playing more overtly heroic women. Less tentative, more alluring, certainly not frigid.
No, yes. Well, Sylvia Poston is a mass of neuroses.
In spite of the fact that I could really find nothing at all in the play to brighten her up, no real passion, no seductiveness,
Nothing?
I still think that she's worth playing.
Well, we could work it over, and maybe a touch here or there could be added or changed to make sure that you're...
No. I wouldn't dream of you changing a word of your work for me. I mean, God, who am I? Some vain Broadway legend. You're a budding Chekhov.
What is fascinating, too, about it is the fact that the true artist is Cheech, the Chaz Palminteri plays, who at the beginning is just a thug and a hood and goes around killing people. And and that's a lovely revelation when we discover that Of them all, he is the artist.
That's really what gives the movie its whole resonance and plot.
And he's the one who'd do anything to protect his work.
Well, I feel the artist generally will. The artist is obsessed with details. The artist, it's perhaps an over-romanticized view of an artist, but probably true. At least in certain cases, the artist only sees his work of art as important. When the play opens, the play within the movie opens, it's a hit. And Cusack is saying to him, look, we have a hit here. They like it, so the girl's not perfect, but they still like us. Let's leave well enough alone. But Chaz is so monomaniacal and so obsessed with, with perfection. And I feel that, artists do become, that's what sets them apart from other people. I mean, one of the things that sets them apart is that attention to detail, that they're perfectionists, and so he's in his own way a significant artist.
I think she's doing more damage than you think.
What am I going to do, fire her?
I can't have her ruining my show.
Your show? Since what? What are you talking about, your show?
All right, so it's our show. But I put a lot into this, and it could be perfect.
Yeah, so did I, but there's concessions we have to make. The show's a hit. It's going well.
She's not the best we could do for the part. I'm telling you, there's plenty of other girls around.
What are we going to do, Cheech?
She throws the whole thing out of whack. Can't you see it?
The audience doesn't know the difference.
Oh, they know.
They do not know.
They know. They don't know how to say it, but they know. Every time I hear that voice, it's like a knife in my heart.
She can't act.
You listening to me?
Take a shower.
She makes stuff not worth.
Do something.
Stuff she ain't even in. It comes out all twisted.
I can't fire her. You know this. We're done talking.
Don't yell at me.
I am not yelling at you, but you are too close to this.
For you, it was really quite an expensive film, wasn't it? It cost about $20 million. Is that, because it is a period piece, is that what boosts the cost?
Yeah, usually I make less expensive films. This one had a number of millions of dollars added on because of the problems of creating a period, recreating a period, is so, the problems are so vast and they're so complicated and so expensive that the production manager will always be happy if I hand him a script that's contemporary, because it's simple. You go out in the streets and shoot. You can find your things. But a period, of course, the farther back you go in the period, the tougher it gets. And this was, 70 years ago, approximately.
Yeah. Is that a period in New York's and Broadway's history for which you have a particular nostalgia? Because one always gets the impression that Broadway was much nicer then.
I wouldn't call it nostalgia exactly, because I wasn't around in the 20s, but I do have, Americans in general do have a very affectionate mythological concept of the Roaring Twenties. It was an age of lovely women in short dresses and those cloche hats and doing the Charleston and the birth of jazz and nightclubs and theaters and gangsters that rode on the running boards of cars with machine guns and bootleg gin, and it's it's got a very, very colorful and appealing ambiance to it.
Look at his face, Helen. You're going to be the toast of Broadway. Why not the West End?
I'm so glad you enjoyed the show.
It was extraordinary. And what's this I hear about Helen's latest? Is that true?
Oh, yes. He's creating a vehicle for Helen for next season.
Really?
Oh, it's a little idea she's wanted to do for years. She plays Jesus' mother.
Oh.
It's a whole edible thing. He
Yes,
loves her, wants to do it in the father. Well, you can see the complications.
Of course.
And, of course, we're talking to Ira Gershwin about a modern musical version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Quasimodo Jones.
Helen has such a new vitality. Even her face looks so smooth.
I know. The monkey glands are working.
It was a great cast. Chaz Palminteri, I think, is an excellent discovery. I mean, he's a fairly recent discovery, isn't he, on the scene? But it was nice to see Tracy Ullman and Jim Broadbent there, from a British point of view. Where did you find out about Jim Broadbent? Because we've kind of cherished him for a long time now, but he hasn't really made it in the movies before.
I saw him in Enchanted April, and I saw him in The Crying Game briefly, and then in a wonderful Mike Leigh picture called Life is Sweet, I believe.
Yeah.
And, there was quite some brilliant acting in that by Broadbent and the woman who played his wife. They were both superb, and I always thought he would be a funny character. There's just something funny about it. And not only didn't he disappoint, but he was much greater than I had anticipated. He was wonderful from the first day and made many contributions and was funny and improvised, and I was very, very fortunate to have gotten him for that, because it was not an easy role to cast.
Where's your babysitter?
Cheech?
Yes.
Oh, you don't have to worry about Cheech. He took off.
Did he?
Yeah. Whenever there's a chance, he always runs off to play craps.
All right.
Takes about 2 hours.
Why have we let off the leash? Why
Yeah.
don't we go in and get to know each other a bit better?
Okay, that might be pleasant.
Well.
Hi. Hi.
Just a minute.
What?
Before we start.
Yeah. Little poultry. Okay.
Right, let's go.
You do have a big appetite.
Do you encourage much improvisation? Because, I mean, your scripts have always seemed to be so sharply honed that I would have assumed that you said, look, these are the lines, take them or leave them.
I know you would assume that, but it's not so. I'd say just the opposite. I tell the actors that they can disregard the script completely, and they can change whatever lines they want and add lines, subtract lines, paraphrase, because all I care about is that the scene works, and often the actor reading dialogue will be stilted, no matter how good the actor is. But when you get the actors to talk, if a man is going to shoot somebody, you tell them, just get the idea across to the audience, get the emotional content of the scene across. You can say whatever words you want, but get it across. And they do get it across, and they're better than the words I write. The words I write are the best I can do in a closed room at home. But when you're standing there with Broadbent or Chaz Palminteri or Tracy Ullman or something, and you put them in that situation, their spontaneous impulses are more true and usually better than anything I can dream up, laying on my bed at home.
So you don't give them a great deal of formal direction
when I'm writing.
When you're writing. Oh, yeah, well, exactly, yes. Yeah, yes, things when you're not writing that you can dream up are better than anything that's going to be in a movie, I would think.
Well, now and then. But I didn't mean to digress.
No, but it's a pleasant digression. But do you give the cast you're still digressing in your mind? I can see that.
For a second, I was thinking, was it really a pleasant digression, or but it was okay. It was good for a few seconds.
Right. Right. So we get back to business. You don't then, or do you give them formal direction?
I don't give them any direction if I can avoid it. I never like to speak to them, even if I can avoid it, because I'm not that social a person. I like it when I hire them, they read the script, and, if they take the job, I assume they feel they can do the part.
How can you get it, break it up? That's insane. You're Jack and Sally. You got 2 kids.
Hey, our kids are grown up, for Christ's sake. They're in college.
We don't want to bore you with the details.
I just can't get my mind around this. Since when? You guys get along so well.
She's right. I mean, have you met other people? I mean, what is this
Gabe, that isn't our business
I'm
at all.
fascinated by this.
I just feel sick.
Hey, we didn't want to ruin anything, okay? We want to see what it's like to be apart. Yeah.
Don't not support us. We've finally gotten the nerve to do this thing.
Cult of insanity. You'll be back together in 1 week.
She's going to keep the place in Riverdale, and I'm looking for a place in town.
Oh, I just feel shattered. Oh, come on. I do.
Let's eat.
What do you mean, come on, let's eat? Come on? I can't eat.
Everybody seems to want to work in a Woody Allen movie, and I imagine that with the budgets you've got, you can't possibly pay top dollar. But does anybody ever turn you down?
Yes, sometimes they do, because we pay so little or the part is small, but generally speaking, that's not a problem. Generally, I do get a lot of good actors and a lot of name actors that want to work, and usually it's because most of the scripts that come across their desk are you know, I don't know, helicopter chases or, you know, digital special effects movies or things. And, you know, I generally do films about people, and so there's good roles in them. And the way I direct, you know, they know they're not going to be, you know, browbeaten or over-directed. They know they're going to be able to express themselves and be spontaneous. And I shoot very long masters, very long scenes in single shots. So they know they're not going to have to do one scene and then stop and then put the camera here and do it over and put the camera here and do it over and not overlap the dialogue and match every movement they make. You know, all that technical nonsense we don't do.
You don't give them close-ups reputedly. I remember Michael Caine saying that the Woody Allen film was no good saving your best stuff for the close-ups because he doesn't give you any.
Well, not conventionally, no. I don't stop and say, now we'll do the close-ups. But
that's what actors like, isn't
but
it?
People appear in close-up because the camera's moving and they're moving, and there are times when I feel it's important that the camera's close to their face, and I make sure within the movement that at that point the camera is close on them, but I don't stop. I don't do the scene in, you know, in a master shot and then stop and say, now we're going to shoot everybody's close-up, and, you know, but you'll find, I mean, Michael Caine will find, if he looks back at Hannah and Her Sisters, that, you know, very often, no, not very often, but now and then, he is in close-up when it's necessary, and most of the time it's more interesting when you can see the relationships of people.
Yeah.
You know, I always feel that the close-up is overly relied on.
I don't think Michael was complaining anyway, because
no, he wasn't.
Let's face it, he picked up an Oscar for Hannah, so
sure, he was always
complain?
teasing me about that, though. Along about the second week, he came to me and said the same thing, that he had been saving his best things for close-ups, but then he was not he never got. But no, it was not a complaint. I mean, we had a terrific time working together, actually.
I want so badly to kiss her. Not here, you idiot. You've got to get her alone someplace. But I've got to proceed cautiously. This is a very delicate situation. Okay, yeah. Ask her if you can see her for lunch or a drink tomorrow. And be ready to make light of the offer if she's unresponsive. This has to be done very skillfully, very diplomatically.
Did you ever read this one?
Elliot, don't!
Lee, I'm in love with you.
You don't often see your films again, do you? Once they're finished, that's it.
I don't really ever see them again when they're finished, because I see them a lot while I'm editing them, and while when I'm shooting it, I see the scenes individually, and then I edit it and re-edit and cut, and I've seen it, you know, now 100 times in the working on it, and I color correct it and mix it, and I see it. And then when I'm finished with it, I sign off on the film. You know, forget it. I don't want to see it anymore because, you know, what for? It's never going to be, you know, as good as I remember. This way, at least when I sign off, I think, well, this is the best I can do.
But you always think your films are failures, don't you?
Well, not always, but a lot, an awful lot, because, you know, there's a difference between a commercial failure, a critical failure, and a personal failure. You know, I've had many commercial failures in my life where films just did not make money. I've had some critical failures, not a lot, but I have had some definite critical failures. And I've had, you know, some personal failures where the film may make money or may do well with the critics and may be fun, but what I set out to do originally, I didn't accomplish. So I've had films that you know, that I myself knew I screwed up.
You care to mention any?
Well, I mean, one example would be the end of Hannah and Her Sisters. You know, I had a much sadder ending. Michael Caine is having an affair with Hannah's sister, Mia's sister, Barbara Hershey, Hannah's sister. And then she gets tired of waiting around for him to leave Hannah. And he's dawdling, and he doesn't really leave his wife, and he keeps sleeping with her in a hotel room, and so finally she gets tired of waiting and meets another guy and marries him. And at the end of the picture, and this all happened in the picture on the screen, at the end of the picture, the original ending was that Michael Caine continues to love Hannah's sister. And every time they get together at a family get-together, every time he sees her, you know, he feels bad because he's with his wife in a kind of, you know, lukewarm marriage, and really still yearns for and lusts after Barbara Hershey. And so I had that ending, and I shot it, and I did it on the picture. And then when I showed it to friends, they loved the picture, and they said, but the ending is just no good. You know, it's depressing, and not the good depressing, not Chekhovianly depressing where you're, you know, ennobled or you get a positive feeling. It's just, you know, it's like it falls flat off the table. It's just, you know, peters out at the end in a sour way. And, you know, a number of close people told me this. So I felt, you know, for preservation's sake, I had to change the ending. And so even though that picture was a very big success, actually, critically, and a very significant financial success for me, I was never satisfied with it at all.
Only you are something. You look very beautiful. Marriage agrees with you. Everything that happened between us seems more and more hazy. I acted like such a fool. I don't know what came over me. The complete conviction that I couldn't live without you. What I put us both through. And Hannah, who, as you once said, I loved much more than I realized.
Going back to Bullets Over Broadway, I went with a group of people last night. Everybody came out, I mean, chuckled all the way through. Everybody came out wearing a big, happy smile. And then, you know, I realized when you, at the time you wrote it, and the circumstance in which you wrote it, when you were involved in all that appalling business, of awful publicity, how could you write a comedy in those circumstances?
Well, remember this, the way things looked, you know, you got all your accounts from the newspapers, from the yellow press, and you would have thought that I was home, you know, like it was the Pentagon, that my phone was ringing and the house was surrounded, or it was Bosnia or something. It was quite dull when you were at the center of it. There was not a lot really happening that was distracting. And the proof is that I did Manhattan Murder Mystery. I wrote and directed it, and I wrote and directed Bullets Over Broadway. I wrote, directed, and starred in a movie on television. I was not distracted because there wasn't sufficient action to distract me. I was home writing, I was in the street shooting, I was in all over New York shooting, and there were a couple of, you know, legal things that had to be taken care of. I knew they would be taken care of eventually. You know, so my lawyer would call me once a day, if that, and say, you know, I'm sending some papers over for you to sign. And I would say, okay, and hang up and get back to work.
What is the position now? Because I think it's worth pointing out that, I mean, there were never any charges brought against you, and indeed there was never any evidence to suggest that there was any truth in the allegations made against you. Mm-hmm. But what's the position now with regard to your children?
Well, you know, it's a very effective thing. I mean, and it's the tactic of choice to accuse someone of child molestation or child abuse in a acrimonious custody fight. Sure. It's become a very, very common thing to do. And common I can understand because it's very effective. I see my son, you know, every week, and that's fine. But I still don't see my daughter. Mm-hmm. I left her, she threw her arms around me, and gave me a list of presents to bring back to her. Then the next day I was going to see her, which was 2 days later. And she was 7 years old then, and we were, you know, close, and she was crazy about me, and I was crazy about her. I am still, of course. And now she's 9, and I have not been able to see her.
Must be an incredibly painful business to go through.
It was painful, of course, in relation to not seeing my daughter. This is, you know, as extreme pain as you can have, and for her not to see me. But the rest of it, if you just take that out for a minute, of course you can't take it out because it permeates the whole equation, but if you take that out just for a minute, the rest was sort of amusing. I mean, it was sort of educative and amusing. I got a good lesson about what the legal system is in the United States, what the professional psychiatric system is. You know, I learned what lawyers do. There were many, many funny things that appeared in the press that my friends and I found quite amusing. As I say, you know, of course I didn't do anything. I wasn't, you know, charged with anything, and all investigations into it said, of course, nothing happened. And even murderers, even people that actually commit murder and accused and convicted of murder, that admit to murders and are in prison, see their children.
Sure. Yeah.
And here am I, never accused, you know, never charged with anything, and was perfectly able to see my son. It's so illogical. You know, I see him, and he goes home at the end of those times we spend together. I see him every week, and we go places together and do things, and he goes home, and of course has got to tell his sister about it. Why she can't see me is just one of the cruelties and irrationalities of the legal, you know, the legal system and the poor adjudication of the case.
Did it have any effect on the public appreciation of your work? I mean, did the box office take of the films drop? Or
No, my box office dropped 15 years ago. I never did well at the box office, and you know, I did the exact same today, last year, the year before, and 15 years ago. I've always had a problem getting big audiences, always, and certainly in the United States. In Europe, I haven't, but in the United States, I've always had a problem for years. No, there was no resonance whatsoever. I mean, the films that came out at the apogee of the crisis made identically what the films before it made and after, but those films hadn't made that much money, so that's not saying very much.
Well, now, after Bullets Over Broadway, what is the next film that audiences are going to shun of yours?
They're going to shun a film, a romantic comedy, in which I'm married to Helena Bonham Carter and are circuitously involved with Mira Sorvino, whilst F. Murray Abraham flits through the movie, dispensing wisdom and insight. And it's a New York romantic comedy in which I play a sports journalist, and Helena plays an art dealer, wherein we marry to some avail and later no avail. And it's, I don't know what else I could tell you about it. It's, I don't want to ruin the story before you see it, but it's hopefully a funny movie. I mean, I'm trying my best to make it a funny movie.
I look forward very much to shunning that one. In the meantime, I shall urge everybody to go and see Bullets Over Broadway. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
Gotta see Mama every night, or you can't see Mama at all. You gotta kiss Mama, treat her right, or she won't be home when you call. Now if you want my company,
Take care of this hand. Over here? Yeah, right this way. Nice crowd. Back in a minute, we know.
There's film comedy from Woody Allen coming next on BBC One, The Purple Rose of Cairo.